highlight these key goals. We're not going to go through every one of the goals or every one of the objectives. We simply don't have the time today to do that. But what I'm going to try and do is underscore a few of the objectives that most closely relate back to the board. There's a lot of this that is more internal to the staff operations. So I'll try and highlight mostly those areas where you may need to take some action, or you may want to set some performance metrics to monitor and to look at trends in some of the performance areas, okay? So the first one is community and regional engagement. The bottom line here is it's saying you've been doing very good in community and regional engagement. Historically, you've been strong in that area. We've identified some emphasis areas to be working on. And for each of these goals, we've identified both strategic planning objectives and business planning objectives. Particularly for the staff in the room today, they're going to be the ones that really focus on the strategic plan. We are going to talk under one of the goals about possibly a C-suite, executive level business person to be hired on the staff. We're really encouraging that. And that person working with Lily would probably take a lot of the leads on the business plan objectives that we've identified. But on the strategic planning side with community and regional engagement, we're encouraging a county affordable housing collaborative group. I know you have a group that meets informally now that includes some of these partners, but this would be an action item where the housing authority would take the lead in the county and putting together a very strong affordable housing collaborative group, which would include governmental sector, nonprofits, faith-based groups, special needs populations. One of the key players, though, is the for-profit community. You really want them at the table because they've got a lot to contribute to the cause. And a lot of times in these groups I've seen around the country, we've left them out, and that's a weak link. That's a weak, can be a weak link in the process. But it's a great group to meet maybe quarterly, talk about affordable housing needs, talk about who amongst our group has plans to meet those needs, talk about what's in the planning stages, talk about how we all can support whoever is stepping up to meet those needs. So that if you are before the council or the county commission, you've got other support groups that are working for your cause, okay? Or if another group is there, you're there supporting their issues. So there's many ways this collaborative group can work well, and we can certainly work with you later on some of the nuances of that. The other thing I would underscore on that first page is a county sounding board group. This has worked very well in some communities where the director and maybe the board chair want to meet quarterly with a few movers and shakers in the community, maybe your school superintendent, your police chief, and others, and just bounce ideas off of them before you make long-term commitments. Talk with that sounding board group about, will this fly in Champaign or Urbana or whatever it may be. So again, we can work with the staff on that, on the details of that later. The only business plan objective I wanted to stress is the first item there, which is we really do need to expand the collaboration with the business community, major employers, the chamber, and other economic development entities. What can that do for us? Again, it can broaden our political base of support. Affordable housing is economic development. We need to link those two closely together. They can help us improve our delivery systems for bringing residents together with major industries and employers. We can work with them on employer-assisted housing partnerships. You can be a resource when they bring industries in. They want to know about affordable housing. You are that authority. So there's all kinds of win-win partnerships that I think you can really expand upon in your area here, which will pay many, many dividends. And please interrupt me on any of these. Any questions on engagement? Marketing and image building. Okay. Again, a couple things I want to stress here. The board is part of the marketing team. Okay. Marketing cannot be just Lily's job. You can't farm it off to a marketing consultant. Marketing requires engagement from the board as well as your key staff in your housing agency. It won't happen if it's one person's job, okay? Another thing I would stress, we're going to talk later about resident satisfaction. That is the #1 consideration for great marketing in housing authorities. If you've got great feedback from residents, that is the best marketing tool you've got. So we want to continue to monitor how well we're doing in community engagement. We've got the baseline surveys to work with, but we need to continue to track that. We need to focus on that part of the population that doesn't know us at all, and that's that 30 to 35% that know nothing about the housing authority. The tendency is sometimes in marketing to preach to the choir. We want to continue to do that, and keep them engaged, but it's that middle group that you want to focus on, because the group, that last group that will never have anything positive to say about the agency, that's probably a lost cause. But if we can work with that other 60 to 70%, that's going to give us the support we need in the community to do really great things. And make sure the last point on marketing that we talk about in here and that the strategic plan is, make sure that we talk about all the values added to our work, other than just putting a roof over the head of residents. You are fair housing, your economic development, your welfare to work, you are neighborhood revitalization. All of these other public values we need to talk about, so that again, we're broadening our base of support through the process. The last item on that, when the strategic plan is adopted, I would really encourage you to come up with a PowerPoint or video presentation that every board member and every staff member could take out into the community and tell your story. That will have a great impact in the community. On the business plan side, the only objective we identified here is simply to make sure that your business community gets the benefit of that marketing as you're building those strong partnerships. The next key goal, moving to work maximization. You're not alone as a housing authority in this regard. HUD has been concerned that a lot of agencies still do not fully maximize the utilization of their moving to work opportunities. And I know in some of the surveys that we did, and I didn't mention this in the lead, but particularly like for Todd, who's new, we did some community surveys under the strategic plan. We, of course, did board surveys, we did staff surveys, and resident surveys. So pretty comprehensive level of input as far as assessing the agency. And one of the comments back from a number of sources was that there's opportunities to go beyond where we are with moving to work in terms of our financial flexibility and utilizing labor opportunities. So part of that is making sure then that we're taking advantage of those opportunities. We're putting together performance metrics to measure our progress and results on NPW. Joe and I are going to share with Lily a budgeting process where, like a for-profit, every business unit within the agency would be starting with a zero budget. They would be making their budget pitch. Where do we need more dollars? Where can we cut costs, be more efficient, more effective? And that is a very healthy budgeting process. Historically, as I think all the board knows, HUD basically told you where the dollars were going to go. We don't need to follow that format anymore. And so there's a lot of opportunities to be much more creative with that budget and making sure we're putting the dollars where we want them to be. On the business side, we want to be more cost effective and cost efficient under the MTW initiatives. Those are statutory provisions. How do we measure that? So that would be a key part of the action item, is how do we better measure our cost effectiveness and our cost efficiency, and then build those into logic models for the programs and services. Okay, we're going through these pretty fast, but anything on that particular goal? Anyone have? Okay, business sustainability. As I said, a big part of this is our business plan. We would really encourage the filling of that executive level business position. That would be very key to helping you to make sure that you're building a business culture in all of your business units of the agency. That person can be very critical to putting together business models for how we should function in each one of our business units. Again, working in concert with your program staff, not on their own, but in concert with the other staff. Looking at investment or disinvestments in your portfolio of properties. That business agent can be very critical to helping make those decisions. Again, you're going to use some consulting services for that, and we in fact did meet with several individuals today and looked at a couple of your properties. Joe may want to talk about that later. But you need that in-house business mind to work with your team. Just as you've built through time more and more of a business thought process at the board level. And it's not to say that all of you have good business minds, but that core business focus is really important, both at the board level as well as the staff level. So that, I think, is a major action item we would really encourage. And then, again, having that person also work with assessing all the competencies of the agency. Where we have great competencies, let's use that. Let's maximize that in fee-for-service work in the community throughout the county, working with nonprofits and other houses. You can do that fee-for-service work. Where we're weak, don't be hesitant about outsourcing that work. General Motors does it, and they've got a whole lot of employees and a whole lot of talent, but they still outsource because it makes business sense. That's something you want to consider also. Are we doing some things that we're not as good at as some others, either in the private sector or in city government or wherever it may be? So again, that business agent would be very helpful in some of that work. Look for opportunities, other multifamily properties coming out of affordability. Those are immediate resources that could be added to your portfolio. You want to look at two things when you're looking at those affordable properties. In my board in Omaha, when I was on it, they would bring that proposal to my strategic planning committee. We would look at it. Does it fit our mission? Is it a good fit for our agency? It would also go to our finance committee. Does it fit our business model? Okay, so that again, between those two, we would make a decision. Is that property that someone has coming out of affordability, whether it's tax credit or had multifamily, does that fit our agency? And we virtually doubled our portfolio just from properties coming out of affordability. Yes, sir.
So I have to use this one comment because it really is relevant. I'd say that multifamily properties are pretty much like farmland. And what I mean by that is that once it's gone and when farmland's built on, it never comes back. Same thing with these multifamily affordable properties. Once they go on the market, for market rate, you lose that affordability. It happens just across the board in the state, across the region, across the country. So when Sam talks about the business model, having somebody that keeps an eye to look at the investments of the agency, to make sure that if there's an opportunity where you can acquire a multifamily property, maybe it's gone past its mortgage limits, but you want to have the opportunity, have the chance to keep that affordable unit within your service area.
Exactly. And again, there are easy ways to track those properties, both on the HUD website and your state finance authority. So there are ways to track that and see what's coming down the pike and be proactive. We were highly recognized in the Omaha area, so most owners would come to us, but we would also track what's coming down the pike, and we would be proactive and go to them and say, you know, we are a possible, a resource for you. And you know, most owners, they've had a lot invested in those properties. They like to see them staying affordable, but by the same token, they want to move them on to someone else as well. So,
And
just yeah.
No, I was gonna say, and that really just ties back into your community sounding board rule. Because you can't be the eyes and ears every place, but they can. So when they know that something's coming online or something has potential coming online, they can form a group and take the appropriate action before somebody else does.
Exactly. And I know one of these action items that Lily is already looking at is, again, the longer-term feasibility of maintaining and managing your tax credit properties as a housing authority. Again, there's a lot that goes into that feasibility, but we've listed that as an action item. Again, another policy, one of the board policy items probably should be, and this depends upon the housing authority. Some housing authorities have said, we're going to strictly maintain our focus on very low-income housing or low-income housing in the community. Others have gone to more of that mixed income model where you're looking more and more at opportunities for mixed income housing developments. That really is one of those board director decisions that you need to be thinking about and making a decision on it as a board. So we've listed that as an action item. The other thing in here, which I come back to later, you've got a wonderful resource in the University of Illinois. Nebraska is good too, but University of Illinois School of Business, and I know that Todd, you had mentioned maybe some context there. That is a wonderful resource that you should tap in this community as much as you can. They can help you with training of staff on building a business culture and business models. They can provide interns. They can bring classes to the housing authority to do case studies at probably no cost to you. There's just so many opportunities there on the business side of this business plan to tap that resource in the community as such. And so we would definitely really increase that. The next piece is the business culture. Again, getting away from our traditional housing authority culture, which tends to be bureaucratic, tends to be siloed, tends to be pretty well focused on uniformity and consistency with HUD regs and all of this. We're always going to have some of that in place with housing authorities, but the more we can build a business culture where we have stronger teamwork across business units, we've got better networking, more creativity, innovation, entrepreneurism, that's going to continue to make you one of the top industry leaders. Those, the great ones are doing that now. You're well on your way to doing that. This, I think, strategic plan and business plan will provide a lot of action items to continue that trend, to build that culture that you want to achieve. And once you started to set those business culture standards, make sure that that is reflected in your staff position descriptions and your evaluations of your employees in the agency. Right now, most of those, if I had to summarize your evaluations, I've only seen a couple of them, but they pretty much are focused on what HUD is looking for in terms of widgets and some traits and characteristics that are important for employees. And those are good to have. But we need to build in some business performance metrics on cost efficiency, cost effectiveness, build in some outcomes that I mentioned earlier on customer satisfaction, marketing, community engagement. Every employee can do something to further those 3 goals. So let's make sure that we build that in to their position descriptions and their employee evaluations. Okay, community building is the next goal. What we're basically saying there, and what you talked about earlier, is that it's great to build wonderful housing, but if we aren't building communities as well, and if we're not providing for neighborhoods that have quality services and support for our development, it's going to be compromised in terms of its benefit to our residents. So it's saying, to a great extent, what we're saying here is that upfront, whether we're designing programs and services or new developments in our community, let's engage residents and the community and our business partners in designing those programs and developments that we're working on. What happens if we don't? We spend a whole lot more time later on customer service in a negative environment, in a negative relationship with residents and stakeholders. If we do a better job of planning, we minimize those problems and those confrontational relationships later. Not going to get rid of customer service, but you're going to put your priorities more on a proactive front-end planning process that will reduce the confrontational services that need to be provided later. So that's the essence of that particular goal as such. Portfolio expansion, we're getting through these, and I do want to get some feedback, so make sure as we wrap this up, we kind of go through some of this in more detail. There's 2 policy areas that we need to make sure we include as action items. The first is defining the geographical area that you want to concentrate on in any new affordable housing development initiatives that you take on. And I know from the community and from the board, I heard very different opinions on that in terms of, do we stay in the county? Do we go beyond the county with our affordable housing new development ventures? And obviously we have done some of that in the past, but I think that's being rethought now, it sounds like, to the point where probably an updated board policy is needed on that. Tied in with that is the board policy on simply any growth at all. There are some housing authorities today that are saying, you know, we've got a solid portfolio, we just need to be great at what we manage and maintain. Other housing authorities are in a very pro-growth mode. I kind of heard some of both again from the staff and from the board on that. So that is another one of those policy things that would be good to have a really healthy discussion on, so that everyone understands in the community and on your staff understands this is our policy as a board and leadership of the agency. Lily is going to provide a couple of supplemental pieces under the strategic plan objectives related to some immediate development priorities that she sees as being critical, as well as a little bit of narrative on utilization of the voucher program as we look at our overall portfolio of the agency. So those will still be forthcoming. On the business side, we've already talked about properties coming out of affordability. This is just a reminder to take a look at that from a financial and mission perspective. Refinancing of some of your currently owned properties. Again, that was part of an agenda today that we had to look at several of your properties with several consultants that Joe has brought in. And finally, again, the fee-for-service opportunities within Champaign County. That can be a great revenue source that we want to make sure and tap into if we've got competencies that we think are highly marketable estimate. The next page is portfolio maintenance modernization. We're suggesting here that you do a comprehensive physical needs assessment of the full portfolio to identify not only needs but also some long-range cost estimates. We're suggesting that they probably want to better define some of your performance metrics related to maintenance response times and work quality. There were some issues there in the resident surveys and in some of the staff feedback that suggested that maybe we need to track that in a little different way as we move forward. On the business side of that, preventative maintenance. That is a cost-effective, cost-efficient measure. It also is less intrusive on residents if they understand common sense preventative maintenance practices. Housing unit turnaround times cost us revenues and reduces our occupancy rates. Your turnaround times are pretty high, and so again, as a team within the agency, the team really needs to kind of look at how we can better address that as a cross-cutting aspect of our mission as such. And finally, the one I would stress is, again, looking at the feasibility for, and we talked about this one under another goal as well, but the feasibility of managing and maintaining our tax credit properties. And again, that needs to look at staff competencies, financial feasibility, as well as mission fit. Switching over to residents a little bit, family self-sufficiency, independent living. You've got, again, another key board policy that really needs to be looked at on whether you are going to continue to set time limits for participation in your public housing programs. That came out of MTW. That's a very important policy decision. You need to kind of revisit, get an assessment of how much progress has been made on that current policy. We know it's been very limited at this point, but of course, we've been through some challenging times as well in that regard with COVID and other things that have been going on. I think from the customer surveys, we saw very low participation rates in support services, and we know that our residents have support services needs, whether it's the elderly, disabled, or working families. They have varying levels of needs depending on which client group you're looking at. Somehow we need to better build those linkages with our support services providers so that those rates are increased in participation in the support services. Maybe that's some more briefing materials, maybe part of that, maybe more MOAs with a few of the support service agencies. I know that on the high-rise type facilities, I know with COVID it was difficult to do that much on-site. Again, opportunities there to bring back more of those on-site services. So we kind of identified that as an action item to be looked at. And then maybe figure out a way to provide performance metrics to look at our trends in support services. Are we seeing higher utilization of those services by residents? On the business side of that particular goal, again, collaborating with the business community on delivery systems to link residents with employment opportunities, Section 3 opportunities in the community. They have some needs in that area. Our residents have needs in that area. So a lot of times it's matching that up a little better and putting together a delivery system to make it easy to work with. And usually that comes out of an MOA kind of a process. I hear a lot from support service agencies that they love to work with the housing authority. They know that's an eligible client base for them, but the housing authority has made it very difficult to build that kind of a delivery system. And I'm not talking about your agency, that's just more in general. So I think there's some opportunities there. Resident satisfaction, I'm really going through this quick, but our time is limited. We do want to probably continue to do resident surveys. Maybe every 2 years might make sense to do those. We've got a good baseline of information now. We want to make sure that the key staff and resident groups understand what came out of the surveys. So would really encourage that to be an action item to make sure everyone's aware of where we were strong and where we have some work to do in resident satisfaction, both through briefings with residents as well as your staff. We want to, some of the key areas that were needs areas with residents, more quality education and social engagement opportunities. We've listed that as an action area. Safety, security was another big one. Opportunities to contribute to the operations of the agency was a key area. And again, that post-pandemic might be some opportunities to look again at resident engagement through resident councils or advisory boards, maybe rethinking that whole process. The other one that I would stress is, as you're looking at budget flexibility, I know that you're doing case management now, much more than most housing authorities are able to do. But if we're going to have these mandates on time limits and improving support services with the elderly and disabled, probably, again, continuing to build that budget for case management really does make sense. The more we can transition our current residents out of the program, that opens up opportunities on the wait list. It gives us a much stronger positive marketing message in the community than we have now with some of the negative perceptions that are out there. And the bottom line is, those residents who have transitioned do realize that it's a quality of life betterment. Not that public housing wasn't wonderful for their immediate needs, but ultimately use role models on your staff and in the community to tell that story of what a great life there is out there after transitioning out of the public housing program. The last piece of that, one that I really, really love and hope you do work I consider, is a model resident incentive program. And this is a private sector approach. And I've even used it. I don't have that many rental properties, but I've used it. If you've got 1 or 2% of your residents every year that are great model residents, they pay their rent, they're good neighbors, they volunteer, they follow the lease, et cetera, reward them with a $300 incentive that goes into the unit. It's not for them to go spend at Walmart. It will go into, if you give them kind of a range of options, maybe it could go for ceiling fans or a microwave or a grab bar in the showers, whatever. But it's something that goes into the unit, so it's an investment in the unit. But it's also rewarding them, and that gets to be contagious. Their neighbor, asks, well, what happened? How did you get that improvement? All of a sudden, they want to be the model resident that next year. So it's a private sector approach that really can pay a lot of dividends for you as a housing authority. The last two that we're down to now is employee satisfaction. Again, we did the surveys. Would really encourage you to brief all of your staff on what's in those recommendations and their findings as such. Some of it indicated the strong need, as I mentioned earlier, to update position descriptions and performance evaluations. A lot of them suggested that maybe we need to be more equitable in our training plans across the board within the agency, so that again, everyone has the opportunity to be considered for training. I really suggest there, I don't think I listed it as an action item, but I really suggested there that probably all supervisors should talk with their staff about career goals. And where an employee has a long-range career goal that's a good match with agency needs for improvement, that's where you want to invest a lot of your resources, because that's a win-win. And maybe if it's a win-win like that, it's a co-investment. They invest part of the money, and you invest part of it for that training or certification, whatever it may be. Or they give a little bit of their spare time, and you give them a little bit of time, agency time, for that particular training or development need that they have. But again, look for those win-win opportunities where that's going to be great for morale, it's going to be great for cross-training, it's going to be help you to achieve your goals, as well as keep them as a highly motivated employee as such. Again, the post-pandemic return, now it seems to me that is pretty well in place, but again, that whole transition, I know, has always been a challenge out of the pandemic. Finally then, well, two things. HR policies and practices. Employees said those need to be updated in some areas, so you might want to take a look at those. And finally, one of the most important areas that is important for the board and the staff is establishing a code of ethics, standards of conduct, and a conflict of interest set of statements. So those are probably 3 separate statements. Eric, I'm sure, has some examples he can share on that. I've got some. Naro has some models you can look at on that. But those really need to be in place for both the board and for the staff. And then there needs to be training on those critical ethics areas. And I don't know, Eric may want to comment on that. I don't know if anything you want to share, but okay. But
I don't want to step on your toes and rain on your parade.
Okay, well, we'll and again, re-sign those every once in a while. It doesn't do any good to sign them this year, and then 3 years from now, our business relationships change, or family relationships change, or whatever, and all of a sudden we have a conflict. So maybe every other year, as you have an annual retreat, maybe re-sign those documents.
And I was just going to elaborate a little bit about the post-pandemic. Whether it's the federal government or the housing authorities across the nation, they learned how to do business a little differently. They realized that maybe they didn't have to have staff, reporting in an office 40 hours a week, but they learned how to operate outside. They learned how to operate a little differently. So maybe the housing authority needs to look at lessons learned and what staff input, how is staff more productive by not being in the office? So that's something to be considered.
I'd like to respond to that question. I think that we are leaning and trending in that direction. I've been on the board for quite some years, and I've attended a lot of the conferences, narrow conferences, and a lot of conferences. And during those conferences, we've had opportunities to take in some of these sessions. And I can't remember exactly where, in a relatively short period of time. We received packets of information and brochures on board leadership training for commissioners, etc. Recently, Commissioner McFarland has really taken this opportunity. Once again, I can't say this where we were, but he's been a front runner. I know Ms. Bailey has also hit this head on, and I also know that Ms. Wharton is really encouraging commissioners to get out if they're available, to attend these conferences, attend these different leadership training sessions. And one thing I want to commend her for is that recently she's starting to have staff members attend conferences. And I really think
Really
that's
important.
I really think that's
It's really important.
And just recently last month we, attended 2 conferences, and at each conference, different staff members were able to attend, and just to see the enthusiasm and share ideals and the expression on their faces, and when they come out of the session, chit-chatting back and forth. It's just a so healthy environment for our team here, and I can see everybody growing in a positive manner.
Mr. Chairman, that is, I was surprised. Okay? Because sometimes you might have executive directors show maybe 1, 2 board members. But when you integrate staff, it does, to your point, it does a few things. 1, everybody gets on the same page of what's the latest and greatest in the industry. 2, it is one of sense of camaraderie, team building. They see you in a whole different arena. So, and they see Ms. Lily in a whole different, so you can all interact differently.
And your networking, just
And-
meeting other comparable staff or board members around the campus. Somebody you can call and bounce ideas off of. The 2 things I would stress there in that employee survey is, again, make sure that we try, and you can't provide you can't send everybody to a conference every year or provide expensive training to every employee, but try and make it as fair and equitable as possible for your full staff, and maybe put together an annual training plan where you can look at some cost efficiencies. If you've got 14 staff that say, I need training on time management, we don't need to send 14 people to Las Vegas. You've got great resources in the community to bring in and put together a path for time management. The other thing I would really encourage is that if a board member goes to a conference, or Lily or someone else goes to a conference, provide feedback to the rest of your board or your staff on some of those key takeaways from the conference, so that again, the benefit goes beyond who went to the conference, but in fact, we spread that benefit to our full board or to the full staff. That would be the only other thing that I would share.
And it gets back to, and I've seen boards, housing authorities do this, is when they currently send 1 or 2 individuals, they get together as a group to see what the agendas are, so that the people who are attending might be able to attend those sessions that are relevant to the board. So just a food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Last piece, which is not the least important, is board leadership and governance. We've done some of this already, and again, it's a nice segue to our conversation here. You've been active at some national levels in multiple ways, but board leadership and governance and training, capacity building is an ongoing effort. Things change. You don't just go to a course and become a commissioner and then never have more professional development or training. It's an ongoing process, so we encourage that, obviously, in the strategic plan action items. Again, dedicate yourselves to these outcomes that we talked about of community engagement and marketing advocacy. You are leaders in the community, you are strong advocates, you're highly respected and regarded, and the more we can get you out there telling the agency story and engaged with Lily in some of the key community events that are going on, it sends a powerful message. If Lily goes to the Rotary Club, they say, well, great presentation, but that's her job. If Dr. Henry goes there, and wow, that guy's a busy guy, and he took his personal time and he has that conviction to the agency to come and talk with us. So those are 2 major leadership roles for board members that I always encourage you to step up to the plate on in terms of your board work between board meetings. I would encourage you to consider, and I can send you some more information on the pros and cons of board committees. We're going to talk about that in some at the inaugural conference in San Diego. There are pros and cons. I think there's more pros than cons to board committees, but we won't talk about that more today, but we can certainly have more discussions on that. Make sure that you are doing annual performance evaluations of Will. She really needs to know how things are going, and where she can continue to grow as she continues in her work. I do have a performance evaluation instrument. Did I send you that yet? Okay. Maybe you want to see. It's a 1,000-point evaluation. But, you can adapt it and use it however you like. But it goes into leadership, management, strategic goals, relationships at the board, community levels, staff levels. Goes into traits and characteristics. It covers quite a few different areas. So I'll make sure that you, and then I'll send that to Dr. Henry also. It's a pretty comprehensive look at performance evaluations.
We have an excellent evaluation, and we have an annual evaluation. She gets an annual evaluation, and we have an excellent instrument that we use.
Okay. So I'll send you this, you can kind of compare it, maybe if there's anything you want to use, you certainly can, but if yours is working well, that's great too, and does your full board participate in the evaluation, or is that a committee that does?
We have, everyone does an evaluation.
Okay.
This particular year, Commissioner Sagan came on board.
Okay.
At the time, she was, so we did not.
Okay.
But everyone, it's a requirement.
Okay. I also have some toolkit items that if you would like some of those, I can certainly work with you on that. It's just, again, we're going to talk about some of these in San Diego, some of these toolkits for leadership development at the board level. And the last thing I would encourage would be to maybe put together a position description for a board member for this board that would be able to guide your elected officials on making new appointments to the board. That would talk about your leadership focus, your strategic planning, some of the things you're heavily involved with as a board, because great board members have choices to be on a lot of different boards. Like anything else, they need to look at something that markets that board position, that would excite them about going on that board. If they don't have that, they're probably going to go to another board in the community or county that does excite them. So we want the best board members we can get. So if we could have something like that, a position description, and maybe talk about some of those skill sets that are most important for board members on this housing authority, is something that I would encourage you to maybe think on in that regard. And then on the business.
Excuse me, I really like that idea. I think we really need that because we had 3 different appointed people.
Right.
We
And
had
I'll
both
be
mayors
glad to-
and a county board chair or whatever. They're trying to change that name around, but they really need to have that information because it gets highly political
Right.
when you're trying to make an appointment and
Exactly.
it really can meet with each one of those appointed people, personnel,
Yeah.
and give them the background of what we need to function wholeheartedly
Right.
in the most efficient manner and throw politics out of it. So I think that's a good suggestion, and I think you wanted to work.
And I'd be very happy to send you some guidance from some others that I've worked on like that. So that we can certainly do. On the business side of this, I know that Joe and I were very strong in saying, well, we didn't know Todd, but we said in that next appointment, bring somebody with really strong business credentials. And I know when Joe and I were here last time, we could see some immediate dividends from that already, from Todd's presence. And I guess we will certainly encourage that as you put together that position description, that that, you know, we have that contribution at the board level in your board members. Not that you don't want all business people on your board either. You want good balance on your board of backgrounds and skill sets. But I think if we're gonna implement that business plan, as important as the key executive position is on Lily's staff, I think it's equally important that we have, again, great voices on the board that can speak to business operations and how that can impact on the agency as such. So that is the rundown. I know Bailey said she had made a few notes or had some. We talked about a couple of things. Do you want to share a couple of comments?
Sure.
Kick it off?
I think that for me, it's really hard to picture the business side of things because I'm not business oriented. So I really appreciated those objectives and goals. One thing that I have talked with Lily about is the county sounding board idea, and I'm really interested to see how that adapts for our community because I feel like we already have a lot of committees, a lot of groups that meet, and so I'm interested to see how that integrates with the others. But overall, I was just super impressed with the work that you guys have done, and I really appreciate everything that was included in this. It's very robust, it's a lot of details, and so we appreciate the audience staying. But it's been really thrilling to do strategic planning for the housing authority, so thank you guys.
Todd, you're brand new. I know you're particularly on the business side.
Yeah, no, I'm particularly excited about the opportunity to engage the for-profit segment of the multifamily industry. I know a lot about that industry because I spent quite a bit of time there, and I think that everything you said about bringing their level of expertise to and I've seen projects where for-profit companies took over multifamily, reconditioned them, put them back on the market, and just exactly what you said, there's a gap there between when they're done and when they sell, when we have an opportunity to step in, because they really just want that. They want somebody to step in and take control. So I think that's brilliant. I also love especially the idea of working in conjunction with the East School of Business at the University of Illinois. I think that there are several avenues, whether it's mentoring students or turning over a business development plan to a group, to a class, that are right there ready to be had, and we just need to ask. I get emails periodically that say, our class is looking for
Absolutely.
this.
And I've done those at the graduate school level, and sometimes we're going out there looking for agencies, but yeah, be proactive, go to them.
Yeah.
Say, here we are, and Todd, you can join Lily at that event with the business school, say, we'd love to partner with you more.
I look forward to Lily meeting with the Dean of the College of Business. I don't know if you know Jeff Brown or not, but he would love to sit down and meet with you, and he will open doors because that's what he does. He's a very community-minded man.
Might even find some candidates for this business position
I think that's a strong possibility.
out of working with them.
Yeah.
Dr. Henry.
Oh, well, we have Ms. Watkins soon to be a Rotarian.
By the way, she did have a brilliant presentation to the Rotary Club, both to the in-person group and to we had a Zoom call, so we had over 100 people that were on the call and shared the vision of the Housing Authority with those members. I've already shared that I've learned so much in the 4 months that I've been around that I didn't know, and so did that group. They were really impressed at the depth of work that Lily and the staff do here out of this office. No idea that so much goes on.
Reverend?
I want to make one more comment. I was going to save it for later on in the the agenda, but I'll go ahead and make it now in regards to the visibility that the Housing Authority of Champaign County is receiving throughout this, I would say throughout the country. Having attended the conference in San Antonio and then going on up to St. Paul, Minnesota, I took it upon myself to take quite a few of our 2021 annual plan booklet.
Right.
And I mailed it to some people that I know in Virginia and some other people around, personal friends of mine that have been commissioners or worked in housing. I had some written comments and letters, but I did not include them in her packet, but very, very positive. The ones that I talked to other executive directors from around this state, Illinois, and out of the state, they were just super, super impressed with the booklet itself. The graphics, the pictures, the written articles about our program, the Moving Work program, Haven Place.
Right.
It was just an excellent, it was just an excellent publication. And I think that's a tribute to the leadership we have here. It's a tribute to each and every staff member that's sitting out there in the audience and the ones that are not there. And I had one person, one ED told me, he said, I don't want to copy this, but you know what? I'm meeting with a banker and we're going to use your format. We're going to use your format. And so that made me really, really.
You know, a lot of really, really good things, and we should have said that in the beginning, that if you look at things and say, wow, we've got a lot of things to work on, but you're doing great work, and the great agencies are the ones who are willing to say, we're not perfect, there are things that we're all going to need to keep working on, but you're doing really good work. Exactly. Reverend?
Well, I am excited about moving toward the business model agency, which I think goes along with your vision of the name change, that changes the look, how we are looked at in our community as a housing authority, but not as a business authority, as helping those. And also in reading the plan, that not only is this helping the authority, the housing authority moving toward business, but it's helping the employees move toward a business model, or business-minded model, which helps them help the clients that we serve, that we're moving from what we were to a vision of what we can be as individuals and as an agency. And I'm excited about that, really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely echo, I think, what everybody has said. It was really wonderful to be able to be part of the process of developing some of these things, and it just seems like a great next step for the organization, kind of in planning how it continues to grow and continues to kind of make use of its status as an MPW organization and you know, building those connections with the community. And honestly, having the business sort of objectives built into it, like you know, really, I'm not as much on the business side of things, I'm much more on the community service end. So having those kind of laid out in addition to the sort of like overall sort of vision for the organization is really helpful, how they interplay together.
Okay. Well, the last piece we're not going to spend any time on, but I'm going to leave it with you. This talks about some of the implementation options at both the board and the staff executive level that you may want to consider to make sure that we don't forget about our strategic plan, okay? There's a lot of different options here, particularly at the board level. You may want a special committee to monitor and track that, maybe on a quarterly basis. Make sure as you're doing budgeting with the staff that we're looking at our goals and action items. Make sure that as we're evaluating Lily, we're looking at strategic goals. Build the performance metrics, identify, we talked about a lot of different performance metrics. Not every performance metrics that Lily's going to have needs to be elevated to the board level, but we talked about 8 or 10 that probably every quarter, or at least every 6 months, probably should have Lily report out how are we tracking and trending on those 8 or 10 performance metrics that were most important to us, like, you know, time limit transition in the program, you know, MBE, resident employment, whatever it may, whatever those 8 or 10 most critical ones are. We identified many of those in here, but you need to refine that as to exactly which ones you would like to hear back on a regular basis. And again, accepting our board roles in marketing, community engagement, and advocacy. Very important that we, again, have that presence between board meetings. Setting policies in those 4 areas that we identified in the action items. Those really need to happen. And that's going to be good practice for you because board policies can go much beyond the ones that we've identified. But I think those are a good starting point. The more you can provide Lily with board policies, it provides, again, her and her staff and the community and residents with a much better sense of where the agency is going at a very high leadership level. And then use those policies and strategic goals for strategic thinking. So that if you've got a major decision to make, you're thinking about your vision, mission, and goals as you come to the point of reaching a decision on whatever that may be. Some agencies of ours did. We put together, after we've been in the strategic planning for a while, we put together a board policy manual that simply highlighted these are the board policies that have surfaced through the strategic planning process. And the last thing there, I think, Dan, again, and I know you won't be having new board members for a while, but when you do, make sure that we orient them on the strategic plan also. The rest of this is more at the staff level, but again, those are some things that have worked pretty well to make sure at the board level that we keep strategic planning out there as a very important leadership tool for the board of directors. We won't be going away. We're around, probably meeting with the board. We're done for a while, but we'll work with Lily however she wants on some of these action items. If you want us to come back in a year and kind of take a look at things or do an update with you, always can do that. If you want any other training down the road, you want to talk about your earlier meeting at all?
No, I think we're good. And once again, it was a pleasure being in this exercise with all of you. And Eric, this is a closed session kind of, so don't tell the other guys. This housing authority has always been one of my favorites. When I look, when I look at the 520 in the Midwest that I'm responsible for, anytime, whether it was David or Lily, the chairman would want me to come out and talk, I was here. Just because of all the good work you're doing, the impact you're doing. And it's all about messaging. So when Steve was talking about messaging, whether it's TikTok or all these other finagling type of stuff that I can't get on. But, that's good stuff. But to Todd's point, the way you sell the good works that you're doing is by you getting out there and making a presentation. There's so much going out there. And you're not going to please everybody, but at least you let them know what you're doing, the direction you're taking to make Champaign, the whole county, a better place to live. So, just want to say thank you again.
Thank you all. Great to see you again.
Well, on behalf of the board, we really appreciate the work that you're doing for our agency, and we'll strive to keep right at the top.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
We'll be in touch, Lily. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we're down to new business. So, what do we have here? New business. Okay, we have approval of the updated personnel plan.
Okay,
We'll have our executive director to speak to that.
we've updated our personnel plan. I won't spend a whole lot of time on it. We did give the board this document with the summary of changes. I know that we just gave this today, but I'll just go through quickly. So we just changed the floating holiday to make sure that it was used within a full day, used as a full day increment and not in an 8 hour, not that they could break it up. We didn't have mental well-being days. We added 16 hours, maybe taken in half-hour increments. Work schedules, we modified that. It was flexible work hours section in our personnel plan, and so we just kind of added some language and addressed that people have to track in an ADP. We changed the welcome letter from Mr. Norton's to mine. About time, right? We added the Juneteenth holiday to the handbook. We changed our dress code and appearance from, I think it was I don't know if we had one that was defined, but we changed it to like smart casual, meaning that people, I think it was, the dress code was that you could only wear jeans on Friday. But just, as we know, the culture is changing across the world. So we've changed that to smart casual, meaning people can wear dark jeans throughout the week, polos. You don't have to dress in a suit and tie every day to come to work. We changed the absenteeism policy to 3 days and a 30-day time frame instead of 120. We've removed the introductory period. We've changed the pronouns from he and she to them, their, they. To be more inclusive, we modified the travel time policy. Before it said that any employee traveling out of town over a weekend period could get 8 hours of PTO. We changed that to non-exempt employees. We've added a statement on company equipment and who's responsible for the cost of that equipment. Say if you're working off-site remotely. We've added step families to the bereavement leave policies. We've included vaping in the smoking policy. We removed some signature pages. We've updated the gifts and loan policy and had it mirror what HUD has on their website. The professional development and training, we've adjusted it to 40 hours a week. Modified some things about travel costs and meal periods, PTO. There's a lot of information here, but it's nothing that's drastic. A lot of it is just kind of language changes. And I think that's pretty much it. Let me see, that's important, part-time holiday PTO. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So you all can review it. We've modified a lot in the policy. A lot of it is just related to language though. So that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions about that.
If there isn't any questions, I would like to have approval for updated personnel plan.
No question, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
I appreciate the fact that in the part-time PTO, that you included part-time people in the holiday pay, because that makes them feel full part of the organization, just not someone who comes in and does part of the job.
Absolutely, and especially with our youth build program, we've got quite a few part-time staff members, and we want to retain good people. And so, just to give them that holiday pay really helps us do that.
Excellent.
Okay, so have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Henry,
Yes.
Vice Chair Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Ovechowski,
Yes.
Commissioner McFarland, Commissioner Turnbull, Commissioner Phelan,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Antwerp.
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along this afternoon, it is now time for our executive officer's report on activities.
So, all right. First, I will start with our new employee recognition. We've hired, so we didn't have, I know this meeting is kind of long and there's a little bit more to go, but we didn't have a meeting in May and we won't have one in July. So just bear with us, please. So I just wanted to introduce the board to some new employees. They're not here, we just posted their pictures up. Andre Crittenden, who's our new education coordinator for Youth Build. Next slide, Ross Diml is our new accounting specialist. Sarah Kern is our new HCB specialist. She's actually a returning employee. She used to work with HACC some time ago, and she left and she came back, so we're happy to have her back. And then Employee of the Month, our May Employee of the Month was Mr. Dwayne Watson. He's our maintenance tech. And he's been with the agency for a very long time. We're really happy to have Dwayne and just happy to celebrate him for Employee of the Month. He couldn't make it, he had another meeting, but just wanted to give him that recognition. And our June Employee of the Month is Mr. Leonard Bryant. I'm going to ask his supervisor, Ms. Siobhan, to come up and say a few words about him. Leonard is our career specialist for Youth Build, and the kids love him, so come on, Ms. Siobhan.
First, I'd like to say, yay, Leonard. It's a pleasure having Leonard on our Youth Build team. He brings a sense of professionalism. He can, as you can see, he's well dressed, venerable,
Smart business casual.
and there you go, right. And is a great role model for the young people in our program. And so he'll be always willing to lend a helping hand and to step in. Always comes with a great disposition and attitude. And we're just happy to have him as part of our team.
Thank you.
So we've got a gift card and a certificate and a trophy for Leonard. So congratulations. Would you like to say anything?
I'm going to accept the gratitude.
Thank you.
And I'm excited for you because you're a role model for the bow tie brothers.
I gotta represent.
I would on every Sunday.
All right, so we just have a few updates, and then I'm going to go into the final thing, which is our employee recognition program that the staff is going to present on. But first, I would, we had some scholarship recipients. So the first one is Felicia Hergier. She is a single mom, and she received an enrichment scholarship for her son. And so just caught a picture of her. We're excited about that. I just want to share that with the board. Next slide, please. We had also another enrichment scholarship recipient, Caitlin, for gymnastics for her child. So we're excited about that as well. Her two daughters, actually. We are excited to let the board know that we did receive a second round of funding for the IDA Reentry Housing Support Program demonstration. And so that's the 15 vouchers that we received through IDA to be able to support individuals who are exiting the prison system on parole. So that will serve another 15 over the next 2 years or so, and that amount was $462,000. And we also earned a grant through the City of Urbana Youth Services for Youth Build, so it was $20,000. I think 30 is up there, but it's $20,000 that was earned. And with those two grants, that brings the total this year to $2,894,000 in grants earned. So we're doing very well. The Housing for Justice Involved Individuals program, we're still awaiting an update from IDA. They were supposed to let us know the 4th of June, so now we won't know until the 24th of June. So hope that's tomorrow. Hopefully we are among the recipients of that grant, and that will be for $475,000 for an additional program to serve justice-involved people. We have an update for the Maple Grove Manor property. We'll be using 1919 architects, formerly known as Tyson and Billy, to come up with the scope and design for the project for the renovation of the shelter. So we've got that $675 from the county, and we're also going to be seeking out additional sources of funding. So we're working on that. So I just want to give the board an update on where we were. So hopefully we'll have the plans and everything from the architects soon. Next slide, please. We all attended, so Robin, Mr. Vance, Tamika, Dr. Henry, and myself attended the Newton Senior Living Open House. So Newton is one of our developments out in Newton, Illinois. So Dr. Henry and I gave a few words there. The community was very receptive. They were excited to have the housing authority there and excited to have affordable housing in their community. And it was really refreshing because we've been to some places where we've not received that same reception, but they were very excited. We did a ribbon cutting and a grand opening for the property. They are our property management company. They're beginning to accept applications, so hopefully it'll be leased up soon, and we'll have some more good news to share with the board. There was a pop-up park, and Mr. Vince attended for the Housing Authority, the Youth Build program, and, representation of the Youth Build program. So they helped the city with that, and so that was really exciting. Just wanted to share that news with the board. We held an all-staff meeting on May 5th. It was Cinco de Mayo, so we had tacos, and we played a little trivia game to help keep staff on their toes about what the Housing Authority is doing and everything. So we did that on Cahoots. We had a lot of fun, and James was actually our winner. So he knows the most about the Housing Authority even more than I do. But had fun meeting with staff, and it was good, and we had a good time. We also hosted a job and resource fair, which was really successful. That happened on April 29th. We had tons of vendors here, as well as tons of people coming through the Housing Authority. So it was good to see our clients and be able to connect our clients with the services and careers and job opportunities. We had our positions posted there as well, so we've had a few interviews following the job fair, so it was pretty cool. And then just an update, just like Dr. Henry mentioned earlier, we did have about 9 people from HNCC, so I think it was 4 board members and 5 staff members or so attended the FADA conference in San Antonio. We learned a lot. We came back with a lot of ideas and a lot of things to work on and improve on. And it was a great experience to go out there with staff and board members. And so hopefully we get to do more things like that in the future. We also had 5 individuals attend the Minnesota NARO conference. Got a lot of feedback about that as well. They took the Youth Build band up there, so I'm sure they all bonded on the drive. 2 of them are in the audience now, so I'm sure that they can share that experience. But hopefully everyone on the drive. It was great, right? So it was nice to see everyone get to go to that conference as well. So as many of you know, Miss Margaret Neal passed away. She was a former chairman of the Housing Authority Board. She served on the board. So in recognition of her service, we sent a plaque to her family, just thanking her for her service and just something for the family to hold on to. And Dr. Henry and myself signed it, and I received a thank you card back from her family yesterday. So I will give that to Dr. Henry to share it with everyone. And so they were very thankful that we recognized her for her service on the board.
I would just like to add, her sister Bernice lived in one at Columbia Square, and she was a contact person for her, and she really just echoed what Ms. Walton said. She's really very pleased and happy that we thought of her sister that way, and that plaque will probably be placed in the church that she attended in Painesville, Ohio, which is north of Cleveland, like 30 miles. Very happy about that, she was. And we were happy to do that too.
Very good. So just some updates on resident services. We had a Mother's Day brunch and tea party. That was really fun. They got to wear their hats and fish dress, and Teresa hosted that, as well as arts and crafts, and we had a cookout. She's done chair tai chi, had the Urbana School Dance Group come in and perform. So the resident services program is really starting to take off. In addition to the events and activities, she's meeting with the clients and working on, probably meeting with about 3 to 5 clients a week. Just trying to see what services are needed, what can she help them with. We've had a few situations we're trying to get the aides to come, home health aides to come back in. Some of them had some issues with Steer Place, and so working on getting that. So she's been working very hard at keeping the seniors happy, and just in line with our strategic plan about providing those supportive services to our seniors. So we're working on that. Here's some photos just from the tea party, the different events that we've had over the last couple months. We just recently had a cookout at Steer Place with Silver Hearts, so the residents really enjoyed that. We had some really good hot dogs and hamburgers, so that was fun. And Vince and Andre cooked for the residents, so that was fun. Some youth build updates. We had mental toughness for this last cohort on our first grant just started. So if you guys have no questions for me, I'm gonna ask the Employee Recognition Program Committee to come on up and introduce yourselves and do your presentation.
I must say, I had the privilege and honor and pleasure to work with this team to come up with this staff recognition and incentive plan. These are some awesome people that I've worked with, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to work with them because some of them, it gave me a chance to know each different people from different departments. And I'm just that type of person. I just like to know and get to know. I'm very personal. And so I enjoyed the meetings, even though it was very tenacious, but I just enjoyed the fact of meeting new people and getting to know other people that work in the housing authority. But, excuse me, we plan to share some of the fruit of our labor that came out of this laborious work. And the first person that's going to up and talk about our values is Ms. Latricia Johnson.
Yes, hello. So, a couple months ago, HACC staff was presented with a survey to reiterate the culture that we're trying to build here. And it was about values and about this incentive program. So, we all came together within this survey. One thing I do love about it is it's employee driven. We all were able to come together and do the survey. We had 60% engagement from staff, and within that survey, we all decided to come together and we decided we're going to be the Housing Authority champions. So, from champions, we decided to do acronyms. So, starting with C, collaborate. Meaning working together with a purpose, with employees, combining departments. Specifically, making to youth field, partnering to provide youth field students with real-world experiences. Maintenance staff mentoring youth field students while providing maintenance services. LSS and property management. Teaming together to provide opportunities for residents and community members. For example, me as a property manager, I combined with LSS, and we did our art day in one of the communities that I manage. The children loved it. So, seeing departments collaborate is a great value to demonstrate as an organization. For our H acronym, we chose holistic, emphasizing the bigger picture through the connection of the individual parts. And what does it look like as an organization achieving a holistic goal? Not only financial compensation, but are we offering proper training, assistance, or an assistant to achieve that goal? Our organization will look at the whole person, employees and clients, working across departments, sharing knowledge to improve each other's skills to make a positive impact with our clients. A holistic approach is definitely necessary. For our A acronym, accountable, meaning willingness to accept responsibility. Are the employees delivering results or holding each other responsible for their actions? Are we demonstrating actions and decisions nobly?
Tell me something.
Things that we can do to show accountability is by setting obtainable and realistic goals for ourselves and those that we lead, showing productive communication with one another, mindful of what we are doing and how it benefits us as a whole, and lastly, taking action just because it's right. Holding ourselves and others accountable for the greater good is definitely an honor to have as value. For our M acronym, we chose magnanimous, meaning being noble, generous, understanding, and receptive. What does it look like with HACC staff being magnanimous? I'll tell you what it looks like. Encouraging our employees by acknowledging and playing to their strengths. Leaders and colleagues asking each other and our clients, how can I help you? Help yourself so that we all can achieve our greatness together. With a magnanimous mindset, HACC will prosper. For our P acronym, philanthropic, meaning desire and promote the welfare of others. As an organization, we can share the responsibility for development, focus on fundraising and strong relationship building with our donors, recommending our clients to other HACC departments or other resources in Champaign County. Overall, an employee that digs a little bit deeper to meet the needs of those we serve and taking that philanthropic approach. For our I acronym, innovative, meaning changing, new practice. We live in a world that is always changing. It is time to step up and be a part of those changes, to embrace the unorthodox thinking rather than discouraging it. It will help employees demonstrate giving their best efforts and accomplishing new processes, concepts, and overall thinking. An innovative employee will help us thrive. For our O acronym, openness, meaning the quality of being receptive to new ideas and opinions. Demonstrating this may look like employees listening to understand, not listening to figure out what to say next. Employees no longer will say, we always did things this way. Instead, we stay open to understanding and allowing colleagues and clients to just feel heard. For our N acronym, of course, neighborly, meaning the genuine quality of being helpful, friendly, and kind. Staff and stakeholders share a common goal to build stronger communities together through partnerships and outreach. We can achieve that by just being cordial with each other. We must seek out the employees that ask, how can I help make our neighborhoods and communities thrive? For example, me as property manager, walking one of our properties. If I see trash on the ground, is it wise for me to just step over it and say, that's not my job? Or instead, properly dispose of it and not just say, that's not my role? By valuing the responsibility of being neighborly, we set an attainable goal for our staff and for our clients. Lastly, our S acronym, service, meaning selfless action of helping others that benefit the individual community. As an organization, we are in the service industry. We are here to help service one another and performing our duties. We are here to help service our clients by providing support related to social issues, including but not limited to adequate housing, criminal justice, mental health, personal and family concerns. Housing Authority of Champaign County is our name and service is our game. With all those core values demonstrated as a whole, we would like to call our recognition program the House of Champions. Yes. And at this time, I would like to invite James up to go over our recognition program. Thank you.
Thank you, Latricia. Good afternoon, everyone. So in developing our recognition programs, we had to develop a basis for how we were going to measure the success of these programs. So we worked a lot with Allison Blithart in developing these programs. So we first had to look at what we needed to do to make HACC the best place to work and what we needed to do to get there. So there's a couple of different factors we had to look at when developing these programs before I delve into what programs we developed. So first we had to come up with a common language for everyone to understand. And part of that was developing those core values that Latricia discussed and went over. Also, we wanted to develop programs where every employee at every level was utilized in the program, in every program that we came up with. But also, not just employees, but HACC residents and community members. And also in developing our recognition programs, we want our programs to be individualized as possible, but also amongst all departments and amongst all levels of employees to ensure that we are continuing this growth together and not apart in our different silos within the organization. So there are a lot of different evidence-based practice that we had to research before developing these different programs and moving forward to get to where we are. There's a lot of legwork, but we got there. So kind of some examples to give you some background on our recognition programs. So in development of our recognition programs, they are consisting of high frequency and intensity. So for example, for the slide I have pulled up here on the screen, so typically what we see, if we have on this top chart, if you give somebody a $2,000 bonus, and you see it there on the top chart, that shows someone who's received that $2,000 bonus, but as you see that orange fades, that person's level of engagement, enthusiasm, positive energy, that dissipates over that period of time. On that second bottom chart, through our recognition programs that we've developed, that's how we're developing them. So research that we have found and based our programs off of, we're offering that same type of financial amounts, but over incremental amounts. So on that bottom screen, over a 12-month period, it's shown if you do it in incremental amounts, you can keep that same positive reinforcement, engagement in the workplace, and positive workforce and a positive work environment. So that's how we decided to kind of develop our different programs that I'm going to discuss later here. So really the biggest thing is that we found is that frequency definitely matters, and I'll go in more into that later. So kind of the strategic plan behind our social recognition programs. So we, like I discussed, we want HACC to be the best place to work. And we want to strengthen our core values of champions of what Latricia was discussing. But really, one of our metrics that we want to use is reducing voluntary turnover by 2% is going to be our success matrix for following this. And for our engagement is going to be 100% of employees recognized annually, at least 12 times per year, 70% of employees and leadership nominating consistently, and 20% of the recognition is cross-departmental. So we want to see high engagement, but we also want to see high engagement across departments. So we want to continue to see that growth across departments in the agency. So our launch of this program, we're wanting to do a kickoff event. So this is kind of the start of it, but for the agency as a whole, we're wanting to get with all of the staff members and hold that kickoff event to be able to discuss this program. And we still do have some final next steps that I'll discuss at the end of the presentation. But before that, then we'll be able to have our kickoff event after our final steps are completed. Our return on investment in investing in this program, so we'll save on recruiting, training, and onboarding on lost time by reducing this turnover by 2%. So by rewarding our staff for getting this recognition for their good work that they do here at the Housing Authority, we're reducing this turnover, and then in turn, we're not having to spend money on training costs and negative effects of turnover. So I'm going to start discussing our different programs. So as I'm going through this, if you would like to refer in your packet, there's an appendix part of your packet where it goes over each individual program. I'm going to briefly describe each program, but not in its full. So this kind of gives you a brief summarization of each program. But for your viewing, you can see the full layout of each program. So that's listed in your appendix in your packet that you received. Alright, so our first program we came up with is called the Highlights. So this is our spot recognition program. So this is our quick and immediate recognition program for demonstrating one or more of the champion's values. So this is something where we can involve staff, community members, HHCC participants to be able to nominate staff for doing good work or demonstrating the champion values. With this particular program, it's simply social recognition, and there's no financial award tied to this program in particular. But it's a way to get the community involved more into recognizing the staff here, but it's also a way for staff to be recognized as well. So adding that to our program is important. The second program that we came up with is You're a Champ. So this is our peer-to-peer program. So You're a Champ is recognizing between peers. So, and these are tied specifically to values. So this program came about if you notice a peer is demonstrating the values of champion, then you can nominate them for the You're a Champ. So with this program, there's social recognition, and with this program you can get a financial award as well. And this is within the agency, peer-to-peer. This third program is the Champion Circle. This one is for our team-based program. So for our team-based program called the Champion Circle, this is for when we recognize a team or an interdepartmental effort for outstanding achievement. So this is ongoing, and we review it monthly. So this also has social recognition, but it's different as it's a team-based financial award. This next program is the Standing Ovation. This is our Business Impact Award. So this is when we recognize an individual for having a significant impact on the business here at the Housing Authority. So this program is reviewed at least quarterly and is an ongoing nomination process. There's social recognition, but also with getting this award, you get to attend an approved training or conference of your choice for getting this nomination or getting this award. All right, the next program is Cruising It and Crushing It. So this is for our Consistent Performance Award. So this is for when we want to recognize an individual employee for consistent performance. throughout a quarter. And so this program is reviewed quarterly. So within this program, there's social recognition and financial award with this program. So this one is more familiar, so and this is a play off of Employee of the Month. So Champion of the Month. But instead of, we're kind of using the other programs that we developed to use. So with Champion of the Month, we're recognizing an employee that modeled all the champion's values, or using the nominations from the highlights and You're a Champ program to nominate this individual for Champion of the Month. So we wanted to kind of make these programs work off of one another instead of having some more synergy to the mix to not have so much going on. And that brings me to this next one that we're familiar with as well, just to play on the words, Champion of the Year. This again will be based off of all the programs. So as for nominating an employee with outstanding performance, that throughout the year, information will be gathered from all the other programs such as the highlights and You're a Champ, and if any other applicable programs apply to that individual. And so then that employee would get social recognition and then be able to attend an approved training or conference as their award for this. And something new we wanted to add was celebrating a champion. So this is for celebrating people with work universities. So with this one, this is, I guess it's self-explanatory, so we want to celebrate everyone for their time of working here, providing their service. This is just done annually for everyone who's been here. And then there's just some social recognition and financial award. So I know, sorry, I'm going backwards because I was in the appendix. So with that being said, going through those different programs, I didn't go into the full details, but I do want to note that within each program, we want to make sure that we were involving different levels of leadership. So from Lily to departmental leaders, and even to this committee for this recognition program for being involved in these programs. We want to make sure that there was cross-involvement amongst all of it, so that way, everyone could be involved, but also that it could be sustainable, right? Because there's, this is 8 different programs, but we wanted to make sure we were touching, every base of what we wanted to see happen here. So also when looking at this, at those different programs, they're occurring on an ongoing basis, monthly, quarterly, and annually. So like I was talking about earlier, consistency and also frequency. So we wanted to continue that as well. So just some final steps, and then I'll turn over to questions. So some things we're finalizing up before our kickoff event, and getting this off the ground and running. So we just have to finalize some forms to be able to do the nomination processes for these programs. And the same goes for communication materials for these programs. And then also a tracking process for tracking the metrics within these programs. And then lastly, the kickoff event. So planning that out of how I want to provide, the information to employees for this new program, but also the new values. And then an ongoing activity for this would just be sharing ongoing metrics once we get that format of how we want to measure those, and continue to share those at our all staff meetings. So I'm not sure what to give our
Final words. And we just really wanted to thank you guys for your time, for listening to the creativeness of this team. Like I said, it was a pleasure and an honor just to work with them, just to be involved in this process. We also want to give thanks and credit to each member of the team. Ms. Neosha Gibson, Ms. Dina Green, Ms. Patricia Johnson, and Mr. James Zelensky. Make sure I got it right. And we just want to, kick this off and bring this to the board. And thank you for listening.
Okay. I want to thank your committee. It's outstanding presentation. Just a couple of questions. How is this program? How do you evaluate each person? What kind of steps do you follow in keeping accumulating the information and data?
So as far as accumulating like the metrics for success that I was discussing earlier, as far as the like those involved, like employees and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but so that's something that we're working with Allison on developing that metric to be able to get that going prior to or before the kickoff event, so that way we can get those that metric tool in place to be able to make that going.
So that's something that can be done statistically, like feed it into a computer to keep everything analyzed.
Is it subjective or objective? That's what I think we're each question.
Yeah, we're wanting to be objective, yeah.
And the last point I want to make, that's something that could be conveyed to the two associates that were here earlier, because this is something that your team is doing, and it's I think it's outstanding, and they use metrics, and they were saying some things that you have already got a head start on. I think you ought to let them know.
We will. We should let them know. Are there any other questions from the board on it?
No questions. I just think this is so innovative and really fun, and you guys did such a great job. You guys are all so cheery and the cutest little group. I love it.
I definitely want to say that it was very important to me to let it not be the leadership team or myself or Tamika and I making a decision on how we recognize employees. One of my goals this year has really been retention and recruitment. We know it's really difficult to keep good people. And through this program, we're hoping to be able to just show how much we appreciate our employees and just show how much we want you to be a part of the team. We're, of course, a public service agency, and so we can't afford to, pay people what they're worth a lot of the times, but at least we can show you in other ways that we appreciate you. So great job, guys, and thank you so much.
Okay, we're getting close. We're down to item number 10. financial reports.
The pressure's on you, Miguel. Get us out of here quickly.
Motion to approve.
I'd like 100 pages to read. Awful, this one. Well, no, in the interest of, it's been a long meeting. I would like to mention that because we actually are having information for 2 months in this meeting. First, let me just mention the disbursements that were done in April, that we had a total of $301,000, almost 302, and in May it was 242,000 almost. Mainly things that would be important to mention were basically in May we paid property taxes for Pinewood Place that was around $12,000, and another $8,000 on the Kohler houses, ones that were donated by Carl. In April, we had several disbursements for insurance, property and liability, work comp. We had an invoice of $15,000 to multimedia marketing also for website updates and consultation of the annual report, 40% of the annual report video. So that is, as far as disbursements, what I think would be worth mentioning. I want to go directly to the report of the real versus budget, and like I said, we are actually looking at 2 months in this meeting. So I'm actually taking it to the May, because April is, let's say, already included in May. Basically, when I was preparing the figures of the comparisons of the real versus budget, it came to my attention that in the month of May, when you see the real versus budget reports, there is one that's the one that consolidates the total agency, which is the HACC total. And looking at the bottom line, I noticed that there was actually some important variation of the budget on the part of the debt service, because I did not notice that the part of the revenue and the total cost are somewhat compensating each other. So that's pretty much under control, but there was something that wasn't budgeted, and I actually, it would have been hard to know about it, and that's kind of what the budget is. The budget, you have the information available the moment that you're forecasting. But actually, the whole, anomaly, to say it, comes from the debt service of Haven and Marketplace. Haven and Marketplace, in this structure of these reports, consolidate, but there's also the same type of structure of the report at the level of the properties. So in Haven and Marketplace, there was a refinancing of the loan done around February or March of this year. So now there are some debt service expenses, and when there are things that are really not actual cash, they're more in the terms of accruing interest or some type of not actual monetary items, then that's actually something less to look at. I mean, it's, you know that the accounting will reflect it, but things, for example, like depreciation, that's actually not an actual disbursements, although it's part of the financial statement structure. But in Haven and Marketplace, that is actually cash. We started this year, like I said, there was a conversion loan from the construction loan to a permanent loan. So now there's monthly payments. Now they do reflect, and there would have been really no way of knowing that while budgeting. I wish we'd be a little more communication with Bridger, I guess, is the other part. But on the other hand, the cash flow of Haven in particular, of that account, is actually makes this very manageable. The loan conversion process done with Chase, there were several financial information that was being asked back and forth, and I took a part of that as well. But definitely the revenue that Haven has makes this very manageable. So, but I just wanted to mention that because that's one of the things that came as something that popped up when I was looking at the real versus budget. Other than that, I can see that the trends are pretty much as expected so far. That's really all I had to mention.
Thank you.
Okay. With no questions or anything, make a motion for approval of the financial report. Probably moved and second by several. No. Whichever one you can catch. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Chairman Henry.
Yes.
Vice Chair Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Ovechowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Salin.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Antwerp.
Yes.
Okay, are there any public comments on non-agenda items?
No.
Okay, listen up. There's no closed session, so I would like to have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, we got that one. We got that one. Roll call, please.
All right, Chairman Henry.
Yes.
Vice Chair Parks.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Ovechowski. Yeah. Commissioner Salin.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Antwerp.
Yes.
Right.
We are officially adjourned at 5:26 p.m. Thank you so much,
And
everybody.
remember, no
for participating.
meeting in July.
No meeting in July. So hopefully we'll see everybody back in August.